The hands that held me so tenderly were the same hands that broke me. This isn't just a love story, it's a warning. I never thought I'd begin my story this way. I always imagined love stories starting with sweet words, stolen glances, and endless promises whispered under the moonlight. But my story doesn't start like that. My story starts with a chilling realization that I didn't just fall in love. I fell into a trap. I was 24, fresh out of college, ambitious, and ready to take on the world. I had big dreams, a vibrant social circle, and an unshakable belief in true love. That was before I met Daniel. Daniel wasn't the kind of man you pass by unnoticed. He had charisma, a magnetism that drew people toward him effortlessly. His dark, captivating eyes seemed to look directly into your soul, understanding your deepest thoughts and fears instantly. He was a brilliant conversationalist, charming and confident, yet somehow vulnerable enough to be relatable. The perfect stranger, or so I thought. We met at a friend's birthday party, an evening glowing with fairy lights and laughter. As the music pulsed around us, Daniel approached me, smiling softly, as if he had finally found what he'd always been searching for. His first words still echo in my mind. "I've been watching you all night, hoping for a chance to say hello. You look like someone who's about to change my life." It was cheesy, yes, but my heart skipped a beat nonetheless. In hindsight, I realize his words were carefully chosen, the first thread in a web I couldn't yet see. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, jumping between playful banter and deep reflections on life and dreams. Daniel was attentive, asking questions no one had ever asked, genuinely interested in every word I spoke. By the end of the night, I was hooked. For the first time in my life, I felt completely seen, completely understood. It was the beginning of something beautiful, or, at least, that's what I desperately wanted to believe. Little did I know, this was just the calm before the storm. Daniel entered my life like a summer breeze, refreshing and invigorating. The first few weeks felt unreal, almost like scenes ripped from romantic movies. He sent flowers to my workplace, planned spontaneous adventures, and texted me every morning with sweet, heartfelt messages. "You're my everything," he whispered one evening under a starlit sky, his fingers gently stroking my hair. I believed every word, feeling special in a way I never had before. My friends adored him instantly, and even my family seemed charmed by his effortless charisma. Everyone said we made a perfect couple. Daniel's affection was passionate and intense, making me feel uniquely loved and cared for. Yet, looking back, there were subtle warning signs hidden in plain sight, signs I chose to ignore because I was too blinded by the whirlwind romance. The first red flag appeared subtly, almost innocently. One night, while at dinner with my best friend, Sarah, my phone buzzed with messages from Daniel. "Where are you? I miss you already. You're taking too long," he texted repeatedly, each message more anxious than the last. I excused myself to call him, laughing lightly, feeling strangely flattered by his impatience. "Relax, Daniel. I'll see you soon," I teased. But his reply was curt, a sudden chill in his tone. "It just hurts when you put others before me. I would never do that to you." A twinge of guilt pricked at me, but I dismissed it. After all, this man adored me, didn't he? Gradually, his demands for my attention increased. Every moment away from him seemed to cause him distress, and soon my once frequent girls' nights turned into rare occurrences. Daniel painted his jealousy as deep, passionate love, and part of me believed him. After all, isn't jealousy proof of love? The first significant conflict happened 3 months into our relationship. Daniel came over unannounced and saw photos on my phone of an old boyfriend. I hadn't deleted them simply because they'd become buried under countless new memories. His reaction was explosive, unexpected, and terrifyingly harsh. "You still have feelings for him, don't you?" he accused, pacing angrily, eyes blazing with betrayal. "No," I pleaded desperately. "They're just old photos. They mean nothing." He shook his head, disappointment etched deeply on his face. "I can't believe you would hurt me like this. I thought you were different." I found myself begging for forgiveness, convincing him, and myself, that I'd done something horribly wrong. Eventually, he softened, pulling me close, murmuring gently into my ear, "I forgive you. Just never hurt me like that again." That night, something inside me shifted. I couldn't pinpoint what exactly, but the unease that crept into my heart whispered that something wasn't right. Yet, Daniel held me tighter, promising it was all because he loved me deeply. I convinced myself I was lucky to have someone who cared so much. I didn't know then that his love was slowly tightening around me, suffocating me without me even noticing. The intensity of Daniel's affection made it easy for me to overlook how often I found myself apologizing, even for things I hadn't done. Every argument ended the same way, me feeling guilty and Daniel forgiving me with open arms, reinforcing that I couldn't live without his acceptance. Soon, my daily life revolved entirely around his moods. A simple unanswered text became grounds for suspicion, leading to exhausting interrogations masked as concern. "I just worry about you," he'd insist whenever I protested his behavior. "The world is dangerous, and people can't be trusted. I'm the only one looking out for you." His words seemed caring, protective even, but deep down, unease grew. I felt increasingly isolated, gradually losing touch with my friends and family, caught in a web of constant reassurance Daniel demanded. One afternoon, I excitedly shared news of a promotion at work, bursting with pride. But Daniel's reaction extinguished my happiness instantly. "Oh, you got promoted?" he asked flatly, his expression unreadable. "Is this because of your friendship with your boss?"
What?
No. I felt my stomach twist, anxiety clouding my celebration. "I earned this." "Relax," Daniel said dismissively. "I was kidding. Can't you take a joke?" But his eyes told another story, filled with jealousy, mistrust, and hidden anger. From then on, he subtly chipped away at my confidence, questioning my abilities and achievements until I wondered if I'd actually deserved the promotion at all. My self-esteem eroded slowly, subtly, with each snide comment disguised as humor or constructive criticism. If I complained, he made me feel irrational, sensitive, or dramatic. "You always blow things out of proportion," he sighed dismissively after I'd tearfully explained how his comments hurt me. "I'm just trying to help you become a better person." And I believed him. Somehow, he always made his cruelty sound reasonable, like tough love from someone who cared enough to be honest. I began walking on eggshells around Daniel, carefully choosing my words, afraid of triggering another emotional outburst. Even deciding what to wear became anxiety-inducing. Daniel had strong opinions about my appearance, often suggesting I dress more conservatively, more modestly. "I just want people to respect you," he'd whisper, adjusting the collar of my shirt. "You don't want others getting the wrong idea, do you?" In my mind, I rationalized everything as love. After all, he knew best, didn't he? He loved me deeply, and just wanted the world to see me as he did, perfect, untouchable, his. But inside, I felt increasingly trapped, unsure of who I even was anymore. My vibrant, independent spirit faded into a shadow of who I once was, a reflection dictated by Daniel's ever-shifting expectations. The truth hovered just beyond my grasp, hidden behind the constant reassurance that Daniel's control was love. Yet, deep within me, a silent scream was growing louder, fighting desperately to be heard. The changes in my life happened so slowly, so quietly, that I barely noticed them. Friends I once saw daily gradually stopped reaching out, tired of my endless excuses for canceling plans. Family gatherings became strained and rare, filled with forced smiles and unspoken questions I was too ashamed to answer honestly. Daniel convinced me it was us against the world. Everyone else simply didn't understand our bond. He spun intricate tales about how jealous my friends were, how my family secretly wanted me to fail. He isolated me carefully, ensuring that his voice was the only one I heard clearly. And the worst part? I believed every single word. Yet, deep down, my soul was fighting back, whispering truths I wasn't ready to face. Those truths became silent screams I tried desperately to silence. One cold autumn night, a moment of startling clarity broke through. Daniel had gone through my phone again, now a regular occurrence, scrolling through my messages, analyzing every conversation. He tossed it onto the table, sighing dramatically. "Why do you still talk to Sarah?" he snapped sharply, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "She clearly doesn't respect our relationship. She fills your head with nonsense, trying to turn you against me." "Sarah's been my best friend since high school," I replied weakly, feeling my chest tighten. "She just misses me." "She's jealous," Daniel said firmly. "You don't see it, but she wants you to be miserable. I'm the only one who really cares about you." I hesitated, uncertain and confused. Daniel noticed my hesitation and softened instantly, reaching for my hand, pulling me gently towards him. His voice became tender, almost pleading. "You trust me, right? I'm just trying to protect us." Tears stung my eyes as I nodded, pushing away the nagging doubts creeping into my mind. I felt guilty, questioning why I doubted him when he'd given me everything. But that night, alone in bed, Daniel's arm wrapped possessively around me. I stared at the ceiling as my silent screams finally broke through. This isn't love. Yet, despite recognizing that truth, fear paralyzed me. What if I was wrong? What if Daniel truly did know best? The terrifying thought of losing him overshadowed the pain he caused. Over the following weeks, my anxiety deepened. Daniel became increasingly critical, mocking my cooking, my appearance, my choices, always just joking, yet leaving emotional wounds far deeper than physical ones. One evening, I cooked his favorite dinner, hoping desperately for his approval. He took a single bite before pushing the plate away, his face twisted in disappointment. "I don't understand why you're still so bad at this," he remarked casually, his words sharp enough to cut. "Maybe if you cared about me as much as I cared about you, you'd put in more effort." My heart shattered into pieces. That night, alone in the bathroom, I sobbed uncontrollably, feeling worthless, unloved, and utterly trapped. But in the mirror, through blurred eyes, I saw someone I barely recognized. A shell of the vibrant woman I used to be, staring back with hollow eyes filled with pain. That moment was a tiny spark, the beginning of a rebellion deep within my soul, a small but defiant voice whispering, "You deserve better." Days blurred together, each filled with the same exhausting routine, tiptoeing around Daniel's temper, desperately trying to anticipate his mood swings. My life had become a constant battle of trying not to disappoint him, an impossible task I relentlessly failed. One evening, Daniel arrived home early, his expression tense. My stomach knotted immediately, sensing trouble. Before I could speak, he held up my phone again. "Who is Mike?" he asked coldly, eyes piercing straight through me. I felt my pulse quicken, confusion flooding my mind. "Mike from work?" "He's just a colleague," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Daniel stepped closer, his presence looming and intimidating. "Then why is he texting you after hours, asking how your day was? Is this what you do behind my back?" His tone dripped with accusations, sharp enough to make me flinch. "It's nothing, Daniel." He was just being polite. "He texts everyone like that," I pleaded, my voice barely a whisper, fear tightening its grip on my throat. "You're lying," he hissed, his voice dangerously low. "Why can't you ever be honest with me?" My heart raced as panic overtook logic. I had done nothing wrong, yet guilt consumed me. Tears blurred my vision as I desperately tried to reason with him. "I swear, Daniel, there's nothing going on. Please believe me." He turned away, shaking his head, as though deeply wounded. "You constantly betray my trust, and I'm always the villain. Do you even realize how much pain you put me through?" His emotional manipulation twisted like a knife, leaving me feeling helpless and guilty. Somehow, he always managed to turn situations around, making himself the victim and leaving me drowning in shame. Later, alone in our darkened bedroom, my tears finally fell freely. Something inside me began to crack, the weight of his constant accusations and manipulations becoming unbearable. The suffocating feeling of walking on eggshells had become overwhelming. I reached for my phone instinctively, desperate for comfort, and scrolled through old messages with Sarah. Messages filled with warmth, support, and genuine love. It was then, surrounded by darkness and despair, that clarity began to shine through the cracks. I saw clearly, maybe for the first time, how much I'd lost. Friends who cared deeply, family who had warned me gently, and the woman I once was, a person filled with dreams, confidence, and joy. A sharp, painful realization struck me. Daniel had stripped it all away, piece by piece, while convincing me he was the only one who truly loved me. I sat there, shaking with the truth, finally acknowledging the emotional prison I had allowed myself to become trapped in. The thought of leaving Daniel terrified me, but the thought of staying, of living this life forever, terrified me even more. In the quiet solitude of that night, I promised myself that somehow, someday soon, I would find the strength to escape. The morning after my revelation, I awoke with swollen eyes and an aching heart. Daniel had already left for work, and for the first time in months, the silence of our empty apartment felt like relief rather than loneliness. I stood up, my movements heavy and uncertain, feeling oddly disconnected from reality. Everything around me seemed unfamiliar, distorted by the truth I'd finally faced. I had fallen in love with someone who had slowly, methodically broken me down, someone who had convinced me that his control was love. Desperate for comfort and guidance, I hesitated before dialing Sarah's number. My hands trembled as the call connected. "Hello." Sarah's voice was hesitant, cautious. "Sarah, it's me," I whispered, choking back tears. "I'm so sorry." There was silence for a brief moment before Sarah replied, her voice gentle yet firm. "I've been waiting for this call." We talked for hours, my words spilling out uncontrollably, each confession a step toward freedom. Sarah listened patiently, never judging, just letting me pour out all the emotions I'd hidden away. Hearing my own words aloud made everything brutally real. There was no more hiding, no more rationalizing Daniel's behavior. "You don't deserve this," Sarah said finally, her voice steady. "You never did." Hearing that validation that I wasn't crazy or overly sensitive lifted some of the suffocating weight from my chest. Yet, leaving Daniel was still an overwhelming thought. I knew he would twist things, play the victim, and pull at every emotional thread he could find to hold me. Days passed, each one a careful balancing act. I began discreetly planning, fueled by determination and quiet rebellion. With Sarah's help, I reconnected with my family, explaining my situation honestly for the first time. Their support was overwhelming, strengthening my resolve to escape. But Daniel sensed something was changing. He became increasingly volatile, suspicious, and desperate in his attempts to regain control. One night, as we were eating dinner, Daniel slammed his fist on the table suddenly, causing my entire body to jolt in fear. "Something's different," he accused, eyes dark and menacing. "What are you hiding from me?" "Nothing," I answered cautiously, attempting to keep my voice calm. "I'm just tired." "You're lying," he shouted, standing abruptly, his anger vibrating throughout the room. "I can feel you pulling away. After everything I've done for you, you're betraying me again." The fury in his voice terrified me, yet I forced myself to remain composed. His outburst was proof this wasn't love. Love doesn't make you feel constantly afraid, constantly on edge. That night, locked in the bathroom again, shaking uncontrollably, I realized the cost of staying was far greater than the fear of leaving. My heart raced wildly as I looked into the mirror, seeing determination spark in eyes that were finally wide open. I whispered fiercely to myself, promising that this nightmare was coming to an end. I deserve more. I deserve freedom. I deserve real love. Deciding to leave was one thing, actually doing it was another. As I quietly gathered essentials from around the apartment, I felt my heart pounding so loudly, I feared Daniel might hear it from miles away. My breathing came in short, shallow bursts. Every creak of the floorboard made me flinch, anticipating his sudden return. Sarah had arranged for me to stay with her temporarily, and my parents eagerly offered their support as well. But my biggest challenge was walking out the door, leaving behind the illusion of love I'd held onto for far too long. As I zipped my bag closed, memories flooded back. I remembered the early days, when Daniel had showered me with affection, charming promises, and a sense of belonging. I had believed every word, allowed him to become the center of my universe. Now, looking around the home we shared, I saw clearly how each joyful memory was overshadowed by fear, control, and endless self-doubt. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. My stomach tightened as Daniel's name flashed across the screen. "Where are you?" his text demanded. "Answer me now." The sense of urgency sent chills down my spine. I quickly silenced my phone, slipping it into my pocket, determined not to let his words weaken my resolve. Yet, as I reached the front door, my legs trembled, paralyzed by a sudden rush of doubt. What if he's right? What if I can't survive without him? My hand hovered over the door handle, heart racing, torn between freedom and fear. Then, unexpectedly, Sarah's words echoed in my mind, cutting through the chaos. "You deserve better." Taking a deep breath, I turned the handle and opened the door, stepping outside into fresh air that felt impossibly liberating. Every step toward my car felt surreal, empowering yet terrifying. As I placed my bag in the trunk, my phone buzzed violently again. I ignored it, determined to silence Daniel's hold over me once and for all. As I drove away, adrenaline and relief flooded my body. Tears streamed down my cheeks uncontrollably, not from sadness, but from overwhelming freedom and relief. I knew the hardest part wasn't over. Daniel wouldn't let go easily. But for now, I allowed myself this moment of triumph, this first powerful act of reclaiming my life. When Daniel realized I had left, my phone exploded with desperate calls, furious texts, and manipulative apologies. Each message swung between threats and promises, anger and love, a twisted cycle I'd finally recognized clearly. "I'm so sorry, baby," he pleaded in one voicemail, voice breaking dramatically. "I promise I'll change. I can't live without you." Minutes later, another voicemail followed, aggressive and intimidating. "You'll regret this. You have no idea how much pain you've caused me." I turned my phone off completely, my hands trembling. I'd heard these words before, each carefully crafted to drag me back into his control. But this time, I recognized them as weapons, not love. Sarah welcomed me warmly into her home. The moment I stepped inside, relief washed over me, tempered only by a lingering fear of Daniel's retaliation. Sarah hugged me tightly, offering quiet reassurance. "You did it," she whispered. "I'm proud of you." Yet, even safe inside her home, my body still reacted with anxiety to every noise outside, every unfamiliar voice. Daniel had invaded not only my mind but also my sense of safety. My heart pounded when headlights passed the windows, and I jumped at the slightest sound. Sleep was nearly impossible that first night. I lay awake, haunted by memories, both tender and terrifying. Daniel's charming smile mixed with his furious outbursts, gentle kisses blurred into vicious accusations. The emotional whiplash was exhausting. By morning, I felt drained but determined. It was clear that simply leaving Daniel physically wasn't enough. To truly break free, I had to reclaim control of my mind and rebuild my shattered confidence. Days turned into weeks. I leaned on Sarah and my family, reconnecting with the life Daniel had stolen from me. Slowly, laughter replaced fear, hope replaced dread, and confidence began seeping back into my bones. But Daniel wouldn't give up easily. He appeared unexpectedly outside my work one afternoon, leaning against his car, waiting for me. My heart nearly stopped when I saw him, anxiety gripping my chest. "Please," he begged, tears filling his eyes. "Just hear me out. You owe me that." For a split second, old feelings surged, tugging at my heart, tempting me to listen, to believe again. But then I saw clearly, his tears were just another manipulation. "No, Daniel," I said firmly, my voice surprisingly steady. "I owe myself more." Turning my back on him, walking away from the life he had tried to trap me in, I finally understood that the greatest strength came not from fighting him, but from choosing myself. Each day without Daniel brought new strength, though healing wasn't linear. Some days felt empowering, filled with clarity and relief. Others dragged me back into dark places, haunted by memories, self-doubt, and guilt. But slowly, the good days began to outnumber the bad ones. With Sarah's encouragement, I started therapy, a step I had once dismissed as unnecessary, but now realized was vital. My therapist helped me untangle the complex web Daniel had woven around my self-worth. Each session provided powerful insights into how I'd been manipulated and controlled, breaking down the false beliefs Daniel had forced upon me. His actions weren't love, she reminded me gently during one session. Love doesn't hurt, isolate, or control. It empowers, respects, and uplifts. Her words echoed in my mind constantly, reshaping my understanding of love and relationships. I realized I'd spent years desperately trying to earn love from someone incapable of giving it genuinely. The real love I'd always deserved was already around me, within myself, my family, and friends who had never stopped believing in me. Still, Daniel continued his attempts to lure me back, alternating between heartfelt apologies and vicious threats. He left gifts at my workplace, flowers with notes that felt more like veiled threats than genuine affection. "You'll never find anyone who loves you as much as I do." One card read, the handwriting sharp and aggressive. My heart sank, but I refused to surrender my newfound peace. With each rejection, Daniel's desperation grew clearer. His carefully constructed facade crumbled, revealing the fragile, controlling person underneath. Realizing this helped strip away his lingering power over me. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, I rediscovered my passions, goals, and dreams. I started painting again, pouring emotions onto canvas, feeling a freedom I'd forgotten existed. Friends who had drifted away returned into my life, offering comfort, understanding, and genuine connection. The fear gradually faded, replaced by strength and confidence. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was truly reclaiming myself. One evening, while sitting with Sarah on her porch, sipping tea and watching the sunset, I realized how far I'd come. A smile spread across my face, spontaneous and genuine, a feeling I hadn't experienced in far too long. Sarah noticed, smiling back warmly. "You're finally you again," she said softly. My heart swelled with gratitude. Daniel had tried to take everything from me, but in the end, he couldn't take the core of who I was, someone strong, worthy, and capable of true happiness. And for the first time in forever, I truly believed it. Though months had passed, and I felt stronger each day, I knew Daniel hadn't fully let go. He remained in the shadows, periodically sending texts from unknown numbers, creating new profiles online to subtly remind me he was still there, still watching. Each reminder sent chills down my spine, threatening to undo all the progress I'd made. But I was determined not to let fear rule my life again. I had reclaimed too much to surrender now. One afternoon, as I walked out of a coffee shop, laughter dying in my throat, I saw Daniel standing across the street. My heart stopped. He stared directly at me, unmoving, his expression unreadable. I froze in panic, every muscle tensed, preparing to run. But something inside me shifted suddenly. I was tired of running, tired of hiding from someone who had already taken too much. Drawing a deep breath, I steadied myself, meeting his gaze directly, refusing to shrink under his stare. Daniel took a step forward, attempting a familiar, disarming smile. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice deceptively gentle, trying to bridge the distance he'd created between us. My voice shook slightly, but I stood my ground. "There's nothing left to say. Leave me alone." He moved closer, the mask of gentleness fading quickly into anger. "You really think you're better off without me? Nobody will love you like I did." His words were poison, designed to weaken my resolve. But this time, they didn't pierce me the way they once had. Instead, they fueled my strength. "That's exactly the point, Daniel," I replied firmly. "Your love hurt me. That's not love at all." His eyes darkened dangerously, and for a moment, fear threatened to resurface. Yet I refused to look away, determined to face this final, frightening confrontation. Passers-by began noticing our tension, slowing their steps, glancing curiously. Daniel sensed it too, hesitating, realizing he no longer held the upper hand. "You're making a mistake," he said finally, voice low, bitter. "You'll regret this." "The only regret I have is letting you control me for so long," I said, louder now, unwavering. Something flashed across his face, realization, defeat, perhaps even shame. He turned abruptly, walking away without another word. As I watched him disappear into the crowd, relief flooded my entire body. I had finally faced my fear directly, and in doing so, I took back the last bit of power Daniel had over me. The feeling of freedom was overwhelming. I knew challenges still lay ahead, but I had finally stepped beyond the shadow of my past. My future was mine again, and I was ready to embrace it fully. After confronting Daniel, something shifted profoundly inside me. The suffocating weight of fear gradually lifted, replaced by a powerful sense of liberation. I realized that the woman I had become, the strong, confident person standing firm against her abuser, was someone I could truly admire. Still, healing wasn't instant or linear. Nights were hardest, filled with echoes of his voice, reminders of past pain. Yet, each new day brought small victories, moments when I laughed freely, times I made choices confidently, steps I took toward building the life Daniel had tried so desperately to destroy. Friends and family rallied around me, their support unwavering. They became my strength, my foundation for rebuilding. Therapy continued to help immensely, allowing me to unravel years of emotional manipulation and self-blame, teaching me self-compassion and resilience. Eventually, I began speaking openly about my experience, initially just with close friends, then with others who had experienced similar struggles. Sharing my story became therapeutic, turning pain into purpose. I discovered my voice again, strong, clear, and unwavering. One evening, I stood before a small gathering at a local support group, heart racing slightly. I shared my truth, unfiltered and vulnerable, speaking about the signs I'd missed, the isolation, manipulation, and ultimately, the courage it took to reclaim my life. Afterward, a young woman approached me, tears glistening in her eyes. "Your story is exactly like mine," she whispered softly. "Listening to you made me realize I'm not alone." Her words touched something deep inside me, confirming that my journey, though difficult, had meaning far beyond myself. That night, sitting alone on Sarah's porch, the cool night air gently brushing my face, I finally understood the beauty in rising from the ashes. Daniel had tried to silence me, break me, reshape me into someone small and powerless. Instead, he had unintentionally shown me the depth of my own strength. I smiled softly, looking out at the starry sky, knowing I had survived, not just survived, but grown stronger, wiser, and more compassionate because of everything I had endured. In that quiet, peaceful moment, I vowed not only to continue healing but also to help others recognize their worth, escape their own pain, and reclaim their lives. As time passed, I learned that healing wasn't just about letting go of pain. It also meant finding peace within myself. I understood clearly that Daniel's abuse wasn't my fault. Still, part of me held onto lingering resentment, anger, and even self-blame. These feelings anchored me to the past, holding me back from truly moving forward. One afternoon, sitting across from my therapist, I voiced the conflict that still haunted me. "How do I forgive someone who isn't even sorry?" I asked, frustration evident in my voice. My therapist considered me gently before responding. "Forgiveness isn't about excusing his behavior or letting him back into your life. It's about releasing yourself from the burden of anger and bitterness. Forgiving him means choosing your peace over pain." Her words resonated deeply, offering clarity I hadn't fully grasped before. Forgiveness was something I had misunderstood. I believed it meant forgetting or excusing Daniel's cruelty. But in reality, Forgiveness was my own act of liberation, a decision to free myself from the weight of resentment. That evening, alone in my room, I wrote a letter I knew I'd never send. Words flowed rapidly onto the page, expressing everything I'd held inside: my anger, sadness, betrayal, and loss. I detailed how Daniel had damaged my trust, confidence, and sense of self-worth, yet I ended with something powerful, something unexpected. "I forgive you," I wrote, tears streaming down my cheeks, my heart feeling lighter with each stroke of the pen. "Not for you, but for me. I choose freedom. I choose peace." When finished, I folded the letter carefully, placing it in an envelope, sealing it symbolically, sealing away bitterness, releasing myself from its grasp. Afterward, I stepped outside beneath the quiet stars, taking deep, calming breaths, absorbing the peaceful silence around me. For the first time since leaving Daniel, true serenity washed over me, a sense of calm born from choosing forgiveness, reclaiming my life fully from a shadow. The scars remained, reminders of what I had survived. But now, they represented strength rather than weakness, resilience instead of regret. Forgiving Daniel wasn't about him. It was entirely for me. It was my final act of defiance, the ultimate reclamation of power. After forgiving Daniel, I felt genuinely free for the first time. The chains of resentment no longer weighed me down, and a renewed sense of hope began taking root in my heart. Slowly but surely, I rebuilt my life with newfound confidence, purpose, and clarity. I moved into my own place, a small apartment filled with sunlight and possibilities. Each piece of furniture I chose, each photo I hung, represented my freedom, independence, and the life I was now determined to create. Returning to hobbies I'd long abandoned was deeply healing. Painting became my sanctuary, each brushstroke helping me process complex emotions, transforming pain into beauty. Every completed canvas was proof that I was still capable of creating joy from hardship. My social circle grew steadily, filled now with supportive friends who valued and respected me. Relationships based on authenticity, mutual respect, and genuine affection became my new normal, replacing the toxic patterns I had once accepted as love. One evening, gathered with friends, I laughed freely, feeling warmth and joy radiate through me. In that moment, it hit me. I was truly happy, without fear, guilt, or shame shadowing my every move. Daniel's hold on my life had finally, fully loosened. I felt grateful, not for the pain he caused, but for the strength and wisdom I discovered through overcoming it. My experience taught me what love should never look like, guiding me toward recognizing what real love truly meant. As days turned into months, I embraced each new experience with openness and gratitude, fully aware of the value of freedom and authenticity. Life wasn't perfect, no one's is, but it was mine, beautifully imperfect, filled with lessons, growth, and genuine happiness. Standing confidently in my new life, I realized my future was limitless, shaped now by courage, resilience, and the unwavering belief that I deserved true, healthy, and empowering love. My journey didn't end with simply reclaiming my happiness. It ignited a powerful desire within me to help others. I felt driven to use my voice and my experience to bring awareness to the hidden realities of emotional abuse. With encouragement from friends and my therapist, I began speaking publicly at local events, support groups, and community gatherings. Each time, I shared my story candidly, openly detailing the subtle signs I'd missed, the red flags I'd ignored, and the manipulations disguised as love. At first, I was nervous, fearing judgment or misunderstanding. Yet, each time I spoke, the response was overwhelmingly supportive. More importantly, people began approaching me afterward, quietly sharing their own experiences, thanking me for giving voice to feelings they'd struggled to articulate. I never realized what I was experiencing was abuse until I heard you speak, one young woman confessed, her eyes filling with gratitude and tears. You made me feel less alone, and now I believe I can leave too. Moments like these reinforce my purpose, proving to me the incredible power of vulnerability and honesty. My painful past had become a source of strength, not just for myself, but for others seeking courage to reclaim their lives as well. I started writing articles online, creating resources to help others identify emotional abuse early, highlighting subtle yet dangerous patterns like gaslighting, manipulation, isolation, and control. The more I spoke, wrote, and shared, the stronger I felt, knowing my voice could make a tangible difference. What once felt like shame had transformed into powerful advocacy. The fear Daniel once instilled in me had become fuel, driving me forward in my mission to educate, empower, and inspire others. As I stood before increasingly larger audiences, my voice steady and clear, I recognized the deep transformation within myself. I was no longer just a survivor. I was an advocate, a source of strength for others navigating the dark paths I'd already traveled. My life had purpose, and my voice had power. Two things I'd once believed were lost forever. Looking back now, I hardly recognize the frightened woman who once mistook Daniel's cruelty for love. That woman, fragile, confused, and broken, has transformed into someone stronger, wiser, and profoundly aware of her own worth. Every step of my journey taught me an essential truth: abuse thrives in silence. The more openly we speak, share our experiences, and support one another, the weaker that silence becomes. I transformed my darkest moments into strength, fear into courage, and pain into purpose. Real love doesn't isolate, belittle, or control. True love empowers, nurtures, and encourages you to embrace exactly who you are. Today, my life is dedicated to helping others recognize the subtle yet devastating signs of emotional abuse, enabling them to escape before the damage becomes too deep. My story could belong to anyone. It could be yours, your sister's, or your best friend's. Recognizing abuse early can prevent years of hidden suffering. Someone you know might desperately need to hear this message. By sharing this video, you could save them years of suffering. Abuse thrives in silence. Don't stay silent. Share your thoughts below in the comments. Have you experienced something similar? Do you recognize these signs in someone else's relationship? Subscribe right now to support awareness about emotional abuse and manipulation. Together, let's empower people to reclaim their lives.